Hello, here's the section of Chapter 12 that we're going to be covering on the quiz. It won't be in the assignment, but it will be on the quiz. And so Chapter 12 focuses on social emotional development in middle childhood or elementary school. And so the first thing we're going to talk about in this section is developing sexual orientation. And what sexual orientation means is attraction to members of the same sex, opposite sex, or both. And there is an ongoing debate over the cause for the development of same-sex attraction. There's the question of whether it's biology or genetics, or if it's environment. So when it comes to the role of biology in sexual orientation, this one is favored by researchers. The question about girls' prenatal exposure to high levels of male sex hormones or androgens, and so they're wondering if that is causing girls to act like tomboys, prefer boys as playmates. They might score higher on spatial skill tasks than other girls, and they might develop a same-sex orientation. So that's some genetic or developmental research that focuses on biology. And then the other aspect is there is evidence of different brain structure in homosexual men versus heterosexual men. And so now let's take a look at developmental theories in regards to social emotional development during elementary school or middle childhood. So first of all, Freud and his psychoanalytic theory, he says that children this age are in the latency stage where they establish relationships and self-concepts within their gender. And this is an age where children tend to want to be with other children of the same gender. And Erikson, in his psychosocial theory, says that the positive outcome of the stage for elementary school children is industry, and industry is associated with the development of self-concept, self-esteem, self-regulation, and mastery of valued skills and competence. So that would be the positive outcome of this stage. Inferiority is the negative outcome. And this is more likely to happen when they can't master the skills that the adults in their life expect them to master. They feel if they're not competent in the things adults want them to do, they're not going to feel like adults value them. And so that lowers their own perception of their self-worth. And they have low confidence in their abilities to do anything. And so in elementary school and middle childhood, children's self-evaluations become more detailed, so not so generalized. They're more organized and more realistic. And two factors promote this change: their improved ability to understand how others see them. So now they're no longer egocentric, only focused on their own perspective. Now they can put themselves in the shoes of others. And so that influences their feelings about themselves. And then the process of social comparison, they no longer have a grandiose idea or conception of themselves, and they compare themselves to other children. And so then, as a result of this, then global self-esteem develops by ages 6 or 7, and that's towards the end of pre-operational thought. And there are 5 subcategories of self-esteem. There's scholastic confidence, their physical appearance, their social competence, their behavioral conduct, and their athletic competencies. And we talked about how in elementary school, children tend to be really focused on group sports, and part of that is because traditionally group sports have just been segregating genders, girls and boys version. General self-esteem declines early in middle childhood and rises later on, and part of the reason why is that elementary school has such different expectations than school before that age group. And so self-esteem, when they move from preschool to elementary school, tends to go down. So if a child has high self-esteem, they tend to be more popular. They tend to initiate interactions with others and have more relationships. They tend to be more successful in school and try challenging tasks. They're more willing to speak out and be assertive. They persist, and so they'll keep trying even if they're not succeeding each time, and they change their strategies up. And so this makes sense when you think about if you've got high self-esteem, you're going to perceive yourself as being more competent. Children with low self-esteem, on the other hand, aren't doing as well in school, and if you're not doing so well, you're not going to be motivated or willing to take challenging risks and tasks. They may have more problem behaviors because they're frustrated or anxious, and they have difficulty in initiating interactions with others. They're more likely to be depressed and have less coping skills. So this is a good thing to keep in mind as adults, because we can help facilitate and support changes in self-esteem. And so when we talk about success versus failure, there are 2 mindsets in regards to that. There's the growth mindset and the fixed mindset. So those that have the growth mindset attribute success and failure to their own effort. And so if you have that perspective, you're going to be more willing to take on more challenging tasks and persist, because from that point of view, it's up to you to be successful. Whereas with a fixed mindset, success is attributed to external factors, and failure is viewed from the perspective of lack of ability. And so if you have that mindset, you're less likely to be motivated to keep trying or to take on challenging tasks. And this mindset can lead to a condition called learned helplessness, where an individual just completely stops trying altogether because the feeling is that they'll never be successful anyway. And children from this mindset tend to avoid taking on challenging tasks. And so as adults, we can also scaffold a child and move them from that fixed mindset more to the growth mindset. So we already mentioned that in elementary school, children can start thinking from other people's perspectives, and as a result of that, they improve in their understanding of others' thoughts. So they can shift from descriptions based on observable traits to more psychological traits. So not just what we can see, but what we can't see. They're improved in their ability to understand others' perspectives and points of view, and they can engage in second-order false belief reasoning, or they can understand that other people might have a incorrect reasoning set. Unfortunately, what comes along with all of these improved abilities are stereotypes and prejudice, because children are understanding what other people are thinking and in some ways taking on those thoughts. And so stereotypes and prejudice become more common in elementary school and middle childhood. And they understand that racial constancies stay consistent. So if they look a particular way, they're always going to look a particular way. Other people will remain, their looks will remain the same. Stereotypes include both positive and negative traits. And remember, stereotypes are just making assumptions about a group of people and then imposing those assumptions on the individuals within that group. Prejudice is reinforced by messages from adults and the media. And prejudice results from stereotypes if the views tend to be more negative. So now let's take a look at family relationships. In middle childhood, children tend to spend less time with their parents. And so because of that, they're taking on more responsibility for their own behavior. And so this is called co-regulation. Parents are better able to adjust their responses to the child's personality as they get older. Children's responses are influenced by their temperament. If they're easy, difficult, or slow to warm, or resilient. And the other two characteristics, the changes in temperament that happen in early childhood. And then it also is influenced by their culture. So what parents do as children spend less time with them is they start to become gatekeepers, making decisions like what sports their child will participate, when they'll go, who they'll play with, and when, what parties they'll go to. And parent-child relationships, though, even though the children are spending less time with parents, they tend to remain stable generally. So children tend to spend more time with their siblings than with their parents or their peers. So sibling relationships are important. Siblings influence each other and their relationships with parents. Sibling conflict is generally high in early and middle childhood, but then it decreases as they get older. Siblings of different genders exert some gender socialization effects. And so girls tend to have certain expectations of their brothers, and brothers have certain expectations of their sisters. And this is tied to those stereotypes and prejudices we talked about a few minutes ago. And then when it comes to the parents and their relationship, about 45% of first marriages end in divorce, and that has actually gone down in the last 20 years, although it doesn't really reflect that marriages are getting better. It's just that less people are getting married in the first place. Four main areas of behavior problems that can result from divorce or stress because of parents' relationships may be externalizing behaviors like They may have behavior problems. They may become aggressive. They may throw temper tantrums. They may argue a lot, or internalizing behavior where they start not talking or interacting, and they may start to have health problems like headaches and stomach aches. They may have lower academic achievement and have problems in their social relationships with their friends, and even with adults at school, or like troop leaders or coaches. And factors that influence coping when there are problems between parents would be how well the adults parent, and then how many resources the family has, and family income. So we've been talking about a lot of the negative things that can happen if there's divorce. But divorce can be a positive thing if marital conflict is high. And so a majority of children are well adjusted as young adults, even after their parents divorce. 2/3 of parents eventually remarry, and that brings with it a whole different set of issues. That brings along with it step-parents, maybe step-siblings or half-brothers and sisters. Boys adjust more quickly to remarriage in early and middle childhood, especially to a stepfather. So then, looking at some other issues, 41% of U.S. children live with single mothers, and some of these single mothers are teenagers. Single parents are at risk because they only have one income, and it's just them, so they have less support. And so if single parents have extended family or lots of close friends, that can mitigate that problem. A growing number of children are raised by same-sex couples, and so children develop in ways similar if they're raised by a same-sex couple as children that are raised by heterosexual families. And so lastly, let's talk about media and development in elementary school. And so media has really two issues related to it. It displaces other activities like physical activities or social interactions, and then there could be some harmful effects if they're using violent video games. Let's go back. Oh no, can't go back. Darn. Okay, so we lost the chart on how much they use technology, but if I can remember right, that one says television is still a major factor, and that playing video games, and they're looking at ages 5 to 8, are not as big of a factor as television. And so what we have to keep in mind is we have to make sure that adults are monitoring what kind of media children are interacting with, and that they're making comments when there are things that children are confused about. Making sure that there's another voice. If they're watching something where individuals are solving problems by being aggressive physically and violent, the adult needs to talk with them about other things that they could do. So hopefully you can go back and look at that chart more closely. And so then when it comes to school, we want to make sure that school is a positive environment. So making it a caring community And in order to do that, children need this caring community to feel competent, independent, and feel like their needs are being met. And in a group setting, that makes the group more cohesive, supportive, and participatory if everybody's supporting each other. And so effective approaches for creating caring communities at school would include warm and supportive interactions with students, and we're talking about the adults, cooperation and collaboration between the children, encouraging children to think and discuss, and teachers do more listening than talking, emphasize pro-social values, and reflect reduced teacher control and more student autonomy. So more of an authoritative point of view. And so when you ask children what they want to see in a teacher, and then if we compare it to what research has been done, desired teacher characteristics would be warm, friendly, and sincere, respect their students and be respectful of them and responsive to their needs, be good managers and authority figures. So again, be authoritative in how they listen to the children, but they have the last word. Immediacy behaviors, so they make eye contact, they're relaxed, and they smile. They focus on appropriate behavior. Positive teacher-student relationships result in high achievement for the children, better adjustment. The children are more socially competent, and there's less conflict among the children. If there are negative teacher-student relationships, that leads to lower academic achievement, more behavior problems. It's associated with long-term behavior problems, and there tends to be, unfortunately, more negative teacher relationships with boys and children from low socioeconomic status.